Welcome to the RTPI South East President's Visit 2020, an interview with the award winners. I'm Sue Percy, I'm chair of the RTPI South East panel, and it's my pleasure to be hosting this session with the RTPI President, Sue Manns. Sue is doing other visits to the South East, but in this session, we will be concentrating on hearing from some previous South East award winners, and we'll hear from Sue very shortly. Just as some way of some context, our regional awards have grown from strength to strength in recent years, and we've had entries reflecting diversity of planning across the South East. So irrespective of whether they recognise an individual or a team, or are urban or are rural, whether they large or small in scale, or involve new development or regeneration or conservation, all recognise the contribution to communities that make to planning for their areas. There is a huge abundance of talent and professionalism within our sector. So our Planning Awards gives us the opportunity to celebrate the breadth that the region has to offer. And we will be hearing about a project and from individuals that showcase planning achievement and leading practices. And I'm really proud that in this session, we will be able to play our part in giving them the recognition they deserve. But firstly, it's my pleasure to welcome RTPI President Sue Manns to the session and invite Sue to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Sue. And I am so pleased that as part of the President's visit to the South East region, this session has been organised because it's focusing on the real best of the best, the Plan Milton Keynes and also the Young Planner of the Year 2018 and 2019. And what both of those have in common is they're looking to the future. And it's a really bright and inspiring future. And as you said, Sue, the regional awards have been running now for over 40 years. And it does give us that opportunity to reflect, to recognise and reward the achievements of planning professionals, teams and organisations at that local level. And what better way to celebrate the very best of planning than through this afternoon's session. So thank you once again for inviting me, and I am so looking forward to what's coming. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Sue. And we're just delighted to have you with us today. So I'm going to turn to our first presentation, and I'm pleased to welcome Michael Moore from Milton Keynes Council and David Carlisle from AECOM, and they're going to talk about the Plan MK, which was the RTPI South East winner in 2019. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sue. Well, I'm going to, myself and David are going to talk about our local plan, Plan MK, which was adopted in March 2019. I'll be starting off this presentation and then handing over to David and coming back towards the end. So, if David, if you could put the next slide up, please, that'd be really great. Right, just a little bit about background about Milton Keynes. We were designated as a new town in 1967 with a target population of 250,000. Our current population is 250,000. But the council's aspirations in the vision in the council's plan is for a thriving Milton Keynes, going to be the greenest and most sustainable city in the world, with a greater Milton Keynes population of around 500,000 people. We're one of the fastest growing local authority areas in the country in terms of population and jobs, and with the largest local economy in the Oxford to Cambridge arc. We're also one of the greenest places in the country, lots of parks and open spaces, and major cultural attractions such as the Milton Keynes Theatre, which is the building on the bottom right of your screen. Next slide, please, David. Right, just this slide just shows how Milton Keynes has evolved over time. The designated new town area of the city originally comprised 15 villages and 3 towns. Bletchley, home of the Codebreakers at Bletchley Park, Stony Stratford, which is the only part of the city to feature in a Shakespeare play, and Wolverton, the world's first purpose-built railway town. And after about 2005, the city started to expand outside the boundaries of the former designated area. Next slide, please. Right. Well, I put this slide up. The coloured areas on the plan on the left illustrate where major new development is proposed within the borough up to 2031 and beyond. All of these sites are major allocations in Plan MK. One of the largest sites is Milton Keynes East, which is the sort of orange blob in the centre of your screen, east of the M1 motorway and south of Newport Pagnell. That site's for 5,000 dwellings and a large amount of warehousing and distribution uses by junction 14 of the M1. Delivery of this site was dependent on the council securing housing infrastructure funding, HIF funding from the government, to deliver necessary infrastructure, including a bridge over the motorway. So our bid for just under £100 million was successful. The plan on the right illustrates where new development is proposed in the city centre of Milton Keynes. The purple area in the southwest the purple area in the southwest corner of that plan on your right is the site for a new technological university, Milton Keynes MKU, which we're developing with Cranfield University. New residential development in the city centre is shown in brown, with major development proposed around Campbell Park, which is shown in green. You can see from this slide, the city in the south is built right up to its administrative area, which basically highlights the importance of effective cross-boundary working, as we are starting to get proposals for development in adjoining local authority areas which are directly adjacent to the city. Now I'm going to hand over to David.
Thanks, Mike. So I've been asked to say a few words about the collaboration that was involved. We were brought in by Milton Keynes Council after the Regulation 18 with the joint challenge with the development plans team to really accelerate progress and get towards the Regulation 19 stage as quickly as possible. And so we provided a number of evidence-based reports, like a viability appraisal, which I led on with a surveying subconsultant, HCH Plan and Development. We also provided the sustainability appraisal work, as well as a few other technical pieces of work, like a water cycle study, transport study, etc. I think the unique thing to kind of pick out here is that because of the tight turnaround, it wouldn't have been possible to follow a traditional kind of consultant-client relationship. We had to be really embedded in the team, and to that end, myself and my colleague Mark Fessy, who is the sustainability appraisal lead, we actually ended up being seconded into the development plans team for 1 to 2 days a week, 2 days when it was at its most peak in terms of leading up to launches of the Regulation 19. And we really felt that helped us to gain an appreciation of the place and a really kind of a very good understanding of the kind of objectives within the plan and the supporting policy framework that was required to deliver those objectives. So we really got a good relationship out of that, especially with regards to having to manage the various pieces of technical evidence and how that then fed into informing the development plans team's development of policy. Other really good examples of collaborative working was the very regular cross-member working groups that were held almost monthly, I think, when we were working on the project. And I think because of at that time, Milton Keynes Council was no overall control, it was really important that all hues of the political spectrum were signed up to the long-term growth plans. And from an outsider looking in, I thought this was a really positive relationship that the officers had with their lead members on this particular aspect. Other really important things to highlight is that I think Milton Keynes Council were very proactive in terms of their engagement, both with the development industry, but also local stakeholders, and pieces of work that we worked on where we saw evidence of this, where we were tasked with producing a green infrastructure strategy. There was a big effort to make sure that we had all of the key people around the table. So people from the county council, the environment agency, the lead local flood authority rep, the Canal and River Trust, all of the kind of the key players that would be in to sign up and deliver the green infrastructure strategy were really feeding into the process from the very start, which also had its own complementary policy in Plan MK. The other thing to pick out was that Milton Keynes Council actually hired a dedicated project manager, and there were daily project management meetings. You can see an example of what was plastered on the walls when we were really leading up to key milestones. There was a dedicated focus really on hitting all of the key deliverables and tasks that needed to follow that critical path to make sure that they could actually get the Regulation 19 out when they said they were going to, and also subsequent to that, getting the submission in prior to the March deadline, which was contingent on the transitional arrangements back then for the new MPPF. So really kind of professional approach. What I thought was really refreshing was that they had stand-up meetings. So the development planners team would meet every morning pretty early on and sort of think about what needs to be done every day. But the other nice aspect that I didn't experience at my old local authority is that they had monthly division-wide meetings. So you'd have the development management team, the housing team, the guys responsible for planning obligations, all in a kind of stand-up meeting every month to talk about what was happening with Plan MK, what was happening with some of the big applications. And again, I think that was just a good way to sort of generate collaborative working amongst the wider department. In terms of public engagement, it's fair to say that Plan MK was very well resourced. There was a public leaflet drop to every single household in the borough at the very outset. As you can see on the slide, they actually took a shop front within the famous listed shopping centre. And as I say, the approach to engaging with the development industry and other key stakeholders was really second to none. We were involved with things like the viability consultation, which then led on to a more detailed affordable housing and planning obligations, workshop meetings. I mentioned the green infrastructure strategy, and you can see a little extract of the strategy on the left-hand side. But it really was a case of leaving no stone unturned, and to that end, the development plans team were very active in terms of trying to agree memorandums of understanding, but also leading into the examination, if there were areas of uncommon ground, that they made sure they signed statements of common ground to make sure that time of the examination was used as efficiently as possible. At the examination itself, one thing that I thought was pretty odd compared to other examinations for districts of the same size is that it was fairly few objectors. Normally the rooms are absolutely packed with objectors and mission sites that are really not happy with the content of the plan, and it can take weeks and weeks and weeks. But comparatively speaking, Plan MK's examination was pretty smooth. The other thing that I thought was again fairly unique and nice to see is that it wasn't just the policy manager always in the chair, in the hot seat as it were. The whole of the development plans team, who are responsible for various different policies and themes within the submitted plan, they actually took the hot seat themselves and stood up and defended their part of the plan, and the inspector appreciated that, and I think he recognised that in his final report. So I'll hand over to Mike now to talk a little bit about what's happened post-adoption.
Thank you, David. Hope everybody can hear me. Right, I just want to talk about post-adoption and Plan MK. I think an important point to emphasise is a key driver for the plan, particularly amongst members, was the need to reset the council's 5-year housing land supply and stop speculative housing applications in the rural part of the borough. And resisting speculative applications was, I believe, also quite an important driver for many parish councils preparing neighbourhood plans for their rural area. So we have defended, since the plan's been adopted, we've defended our housing land supply position at 2 very high-profile appeals. Good news is that as the plan provided more land for housing completions have gone up from about 1,500 dwellings per annum in 2017 to over 2,000. Now in 2019-20. Affordable housing delivery has been a bit disappointing. Instead of achieving 31%, it's been around 20%. But adoption of Plan MK in March 2019 meant our focus has been on producing supplementary planning documents, SPDs, to deliver key strategic sites such as Milton Keynes East, which I referred to earlier, and topic-based SPDs on topics such as affordable housing planning obligations and sustainable construction. We've also consulted on a document called Milton Keynes 2050 from January to May this year, and although that's not a statutory document, that's taking a long-term look at where Milton Keynes wants to position itself for the future. And as our workload of SPD production winds down, we'll be starting work on a new local plan to go beyond the current end date of 2031. Now, I'm going to touch on the implications of the planning white paper. I've mentioned earlier that Milton Keynes is part of the Oxford to Cambridge arc, and We're still waiting to see the spatial guidance being proposed for the Oxford to Cambridge arc. In terms of the planning white paper, I need to add a caveat that Milton Keynes Council has not yet finalised its comments. So what I'm now saying are my own views without prejudice to what the council may say on that white paper. I think we would very much welcome the recognition that resources are needed in local planning authorities in order to support the planning process. That is a key issue. But I think our concerns are that my concern is about the white paper is that reforms to cross-boundary working leave no space or architecture for the regional, sub-regional planning that's necessary to deliver the ARC's ambitions. There's also arousing a lot of concern is the democratic deficit of the new system, and that's felt to undermine the democratic nature of the planning process and deny or at least drastically curtail local people's right to participate in decisions that have a real world effects on them, on the places they live and work and enjoy. We're concerned, that the reforms will distinguish any opportunity for creating a vision and wider placemaking for Milton Keynes through the local plan process. And the white paper misunderstands the root causes of slow housing delivery, which have been well documented elsewhere, and also the complete absence of or recognition of waste and minerals planning, and very little recognition of employment, retail, and other development needs that we plan for. I'm just going to go to the next slide, David. Thank you. This is, I think, one of the clear. I'm just going to touch now on the effects on COVID-19. Well, as a council, we've adapted to new ways of working. I mean, 80% of the staff works outside the council offices. My team meets on Teams every day. We have council meetings, presentations on Teams, and we have now have planning committee broadcasts on YouTube for our development management committee. We have we've had to, as a result of COVID-19, adapt our statement of community involvement, because clearly that says that we can't deliver and have documents on display in libraries which are closed. One of the positive side, COVID-19 has been extremely good for the Starship delivery robots in Milton Keynes, and robot deliveries of groceries and takeaways have thrived during the pandemic. So they've been a godsend for a real lifeline for those people who haven't been able to get outside their homes. Pandemic has been good for warehouse operators as online sales have increased, and we've had a marked increase in activity for new warehouses in Milton Keynes, for Amazon by the M1 motorway and for H&M. We've seen an increase in the number of householder planning applications, but a decline in the number of major planning applications. And surprisingly, our housing completions have not fallen as much as expected. From April to September, we've had around 840 dwellings completed, which, considering we're halfway through the year, that's pretty good going. We've had about 1,690 dwellings started, 1,690 dwellings, started, and over 3,000 dwellings under construction. I think that's possibly due to the abolition of stamp duty and a desire for more living space as people are leaving the big cities, and that's boosting housing sales in provincial locations like Milton Keynes. On the negative side, I mean, clearly we have been, the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors have been very hard hit with shop closures and restaurant chains. So we have lost thousands of jobs because of closures in that sector. So with that, I think that's all I had to say. So if there are any questions.
Okay, many thanks for an excellent presentation. And yes, we do have time for a couple of questions. So I don't know if anyone wants to kick off, or I'm very happy to. If anyone does, just wave at me. Or yes, Sue.
Thank you. Thank you, David, and thank you, Michael. That was really, really interesting. And I'd actually got a couple of questions, but I'll keep it to one so everybody else gets a bite of the cherry. One of the things that I talk an awful lot about is community engagement. And I was very struck by the fact that the extent of the engagement that you've done with the community and also with stakeholders. And I just was interested to know the extent to which you feel that you were successful in terms of reaching beyond what we call the usual suspects and actually getting responses from the much wider diversity of society. And the reason I asked that, it's actually in the context of a report that came out a couple of days ago, which said that sort of 93% of 16 to 18-year-olds hadn't been consulted on anything regarding the future of their areas, but 82% of them wanted to be. So just be very interested for your views on that and how you feel that worked.
Right. Well, if I kick off, I mean, for Plan MK, we did do a number of special events for the Milton Keynes Youth Forum, Youth Parliament. We did also have a special day where they sort of did role play. We made a model of Milton Keynes with some rope, some traffic bollards, and it was amazing how how quickly the teenagers started replicating the views of their parents. I don't want development here. That is a nice area. But on the wider point, Sue, I mean, our planning advisory, planning cabinet advisory group actually has a member and a substitute member who are both members of the Youth Forum on it, sitting there with the councillors and other representatives of key stakeholders like the community action, SEMLEP. So we've actually trying to involve young people in that group. So I think we have learned lessons from what we did at Plan MK, and we're trying to, going forward, we've got active youth representation on our Planning Cabinet Advisory Group, which is the group that will be preparing and discussing and advising the cabinet member on the new local plan.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Okay, I've got a question here for you. It's really, when you're going through this process, and obviously you've also been sort of bringing this up to date on how things are going now, and of course the world has changed from when you instigated this. But I wondered whether you could just outline a couple of the key challenges you faced and how you overcame them, because with all of this there's always challenges, and sometimes they come from very unexpected quarters, and I wondered what your key challenges were.
Well, I wouldn't underestimate the logistical difficulty of getting. I think of a plan as a bit like a cake. You've got to make sure that all your ingredients are there. There's an enormous amount of studies which have got to be prepared, and to give you and that provides you the information that you're using, for the evidence base for your plan. So there was an enormous amount of work there, and we and sometimes getting those evidence-based studies. And I'm sure David won't mind me that we had to recruit some external consultants other than AECOM to do that. Could be and we were obviously there was if the delay could affect timings of the preparation of the plan. As I say, I think I've already alluded to. I mean, one of the key drivers for this plan was the need to sort of reset the 5-year housing land supply. I sometimes feel that the whole plan was just dominated by housing and housing supply, and nothing else. And of course there were other elements, but that was the sort of the mood music, the context in which we were doing it, and trying to prepare it alongside all the other pressures. It became at the public inquiry, it became a joke as to when would the air conditioning be fixed, because we were in the top of a hotel building, and it was, I'm sure David is nodding, but it could be baking, and the sweat would be pouring off you, and every day, Sarah, we had my team leader had to get, Sarah, I'm advised that the air conditioning is still inoperable today. It's just that was one thing that we just was beyond our control, but and there was a big, I think everybody was grateful when it was fixed. Sue, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Were there any other questions?
Well,
I am back. Sorry about that. My computer seems to want to keep putting me onto mute. It's got its own little bug in here, right. So my apologies. So you had another question, I think, anyway.
Yes, I do actually, and it links very much to the question that you asked, Sue. And this is really based on your experiences and your reflections now, a year later, looking back 2020, on the plan preparation process. What is the aspect or the outcome that you are most proud of?
Wow, that's a big question. I think, I mean, this is, I think the fact that we did it, that we finished it, it was to a high standard. It was sound. I mean, the words that cause terror, you know, to accuse a plan of being unsound is the one that causes us the most concern. But it's you know, it's done the job. It's allocated sites. We're getting on with delivery and implementation now of development. But you know, doing a local plan, I'm sure other people will agree, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So we're doing it from start to finish, and when and there's a great deal of satisfaction when you've finished, you've got the inspector's report, it's you know, you've adopted the plan, you can then go. So we all went out for a meal to celebrate it. So yeah, I think producing a document to a high standard and finally finishing it. I mean, we are aware that some local authorities started around the same time that we did and have yet to adopt their plans.
That's brilliant. I can honestly see exactly why you won the regional award. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. And there's one last question for me. And it's a question actually we normally ask all the entrants to the South East Awards, so it would be completely remiss of me if I don't ask you. It's really about what you thought or you think, and reflecting back, were the key planning skills that you needed to draw on to be able to do what you did. Given it's an interdisciplinary team that you work with, what are the key planning skills that you think are absolutely core to being able to do what you did?
David, do you want to start?
Yeah, I don't mind kicking off. I think obviously one of the key competencies when you're doing your APC is kind of your own professional judgments, and I think the kind of the optioneering process that we went through in the assessment process was fairly unique. So as I said, my colleague Mark Fessy was the SA lead, and I led on the viability. So in effect, key components of how do you satisfy the fact that you've looked at reasonable alternatives, that the plan's justified, and it's going to be effective and deliverable and viable. And I felt that instead of just being a kind of consultant that hands a PDF to say here's your SA or here's your viability appraisal report, the fact that we were actually sat within the team, we were able to kind of chew over the recommendations that we'd made and what the implications might be for plan making. So the development plan team is very much driving the policy making, and we were trying to help as best as we could when we were seconded in to provide our own technical advice. And I think that kind of one team kind of approach was really quite special for quite a time pressured scenario. And I don't actually think that we would have, that Milton Keynes would have made the submission deadlines had we not been actually deeply embedded and been able to kind of work day to day and tap Mike on the shoulder, have a particular site. That for me was personally the most valuable part of the whole 2-year process.
I sort of touched on this in the presentation. I think, you know, fundamentally for a huge job like a local plan, good project management skills, you know, are absolutely vital. Good communication, which David sort of has touched on, everybody knowing where we are, and you know, and also, you know, getting the political buy-in from, you know, we as David said, we're a hung council, no party in overall control, and it's very important in those sort of circumstances to get you know, to have buy-in from members, so that you know, you don't have huge changes in policy and programs during the course of preparing the plan, because the political composition of the council has changed. So I think that was very important. So yeah, political buy-in to the process, good communication and good project management skills.
Brilliant. Great. Thank you so much, Michael and David, for sharing the process and your experiences with us. And that was really excellent. So thank you very much indeed. And it's now my pleasure to move us on and invite Laura Archer from Barton Willmore, who is our South East Young Planner of the year 2019. And you're going to say a few words, I think, Laura.
Yes, thank you, Sue. I've got a presentation as well to make it look a bit, some pictures as I go along. Hope everyone can see that okay. So yeah, thanks for the introduction, Sue. So I'm Laura Archer. I'm a planner at Barton Willmore, Young Planner Trustee for the RTPI. I chair the South Coast Young Planners Network, and I also help on the Women in Planning Solent Committee, and I'm IEMA Futures Ambassador. So just thought I'd talk through a bit of my journey so far. So I'm originally from Liverpool, diehard Liverpool football fan. I went to Newcastle University and studied urban planning. And then from my placement year, I then started at Adams Hendry, a planning consultancy based in Winchester, and they focus on infrastructure and environmental impact assessment. So I had a really good site visit to a sewage treatment works, and from that, maybe not the sewage treatment works, but from that experience, I decided to specialise for my master's in environmental assessment and management. So then I chose to study at Oxford Brookes University, and then more recently I've become a planner at Barton Willmore, where we do a lot more of residential based development as well. So I like to say why town planning. I like to ask everyone as well normally, because a lot of people maybe got into town planning through geography. Myself personally, obviously I didn't. And I could owe it all to Patrick McGoon from watching The Prisoner, and also visiting Port Meriam on a family holiday. And I think I just saw like this, amazing place as well, like idyllic and colourful. It's really attractive, and it was just a lovely place. But obviously, I think now in my, my job, I think I enjoy, creating places and delivering results. So obviously, there's a big housing need at the minute, but I think that to make a place, you need to have the right infrastructure and also the right amount of green space, and to make that a great place and add value. So I think the value aspect of my job is definitely something that drives me. So I just wanted to touch quickly on one of my projects I'm working on at the minute at Barton Willmore, which is Ford Airfield. So it is a mainly residential, but obviously there's going to be providing sports pitches, primary school and care home. So it's, and a local centre. So community is at the heart. And what I really like about this project is that it's allocated in the neighbourhood plan and also the local plan. And it's been community led from the start, with a lot of consultation, and also involved in a weekend of getting a map out and getting the community to plot on where they think the best location would be, say for the care home or the sports pitches, because obviously we want to link to the surrounding villages as well. So that's been really interesting to work on. I'm really enjoying it at the minute. Outside of work, I'm obviously RTPI Young Planner Trustee, and as part of that, I meet with other Young Planner chairs from the regions and nations. We meet about 4 times a year. And it's just a really great network, really, to support each other. We discuss what, how we're all getting along in our committees and what events we're running, and obviously offer help and support if needed. And also we have guests. Obviously, Sue Mans was obviously a guest last year, and we've had Young Planners of the Year come before and talk to us. And also we had Stancy Bell one year, who came from King's Chambers, and she presented on public speaking. So that was great. She got us all up to talk about that. And more recently, myself, obviously this year, we've been all virtual, our meetings, and myself and 7 others from chairs across the regions and nations have come together, and we are putting together the first virtual Young Planners Conference, which is taking place next month. which we're hoping will go well, and it's going to focus all on leadership and sort of try and offer some career development tips, obviously, to those just graduating and also maybe finding it hard in the world we live in now. Obviously, everything's virtual, and we're going to try and offer a virtual workshop on interviews, obviously over Teams and the like. And obviously, I'm involved in the South Coast Planners Network. Last year, we had an amazing year. We did 11 events and engaged with Brighton University, which was great to get in and speak to the students. This year, obviously, it's been a bit different because of COVID, but we have done some virtual CPD sessions, mainly focusing on local issues such as nitrates, just to obviously with everything going on nationally, we focus locally. I think as well, we are looking forward to hopefully getting back out eventually and taking part in some bike rides or walking tour, which was really popular last year. And the bike ride was a really good success because it was also great for everyone's sort of mental health and well-being at the same time as getting to know each other and network, which was a really good day out. So obviously, I do a lot of outside of work, but I just like to say, what is it, why do I do it? And I think for me, I learn something new every day. My own personal confidence has increased, and I get to meet people from different disciplines. And obviously they all, develop a support network. Obviously moving down here, like on my own, a lot like other young planners, having that network, it's really great to settle in. And also it's just spending time doing something I enjoy, and I just try and encourage as many young planners to get involved with the committee local to them, because it is a really great way to also help your career along as well, because everything you learn through the committee can be used in a meeting at work. So I think looking to the future, obviously I want to hope that our virtual Young Planners Conference next month is successful. I aim to be a Chartered Town Planner in early 2021, and I obviously want to host one more webinar on behalf of the South Coast Young Planners Network to conclude our Solent series focusing on nitrates. And my long-term goal is definitely to continue to promote the planning profession to younger generations. I think this is something I'm quite passionate about. I'm also a Brownie leader, so I try, because I just feel like planning isn't brought up in the curriculum. A lot of people would say, I heard about it through geography or other people, it's not on the curriculum. So that's something I'm really passionate in getting into, going into schools to promote the profession, and also carry on as my role as RTPI Young Planner Trustee, which is something that I'm really enjoying, and getting to have an influence on the RTPI's future, and obviously for the members, representing members. And also a personal goal of mine is just to develop my EIA knowledge further. So yeah, that's it really. I think for, it's best, you have to enjoy what you do. I always like to have fun. And I think for me, for winning the South East Young Planner of the Year in 2019 was really a really big achievement for me. And I think as well, just personally, because I'm not chartered yet, and I know a lot of people say you can't do this until you're chartered, but I just wanted to go for it and show that no matter how early on you are in your career, you can make an impact. So, and I hope that I can encourage other young planners to get involved. So yeah, thank you for listening. Any questions?
Brilliant. Great, thanks very much, Laura. I'm going to just ask everyone to hold their questions for Laura, because we're now going to hear from another presenter and then take questions for both of you in a few minutes, if that's okay, Laura. But that was really inspiring. I feel exhausted just listening to what you've achieved already, but we'll come back to that. I do want to now introduce Jeffrey Ong from West Berkshire Council. And Jeffrey is the South East Young Planner for 2018. And I think, again, Jeffrey, you're going to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Sue. Okay, let me share my screen. Yeah. Right. Okay. Oops. Here we are. I just tried. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeffrey. I'm the RTPI Young Planner South East for year 2018. Thank you very much for inviting me to do some very short sharing in this residential visit. start from the beginning. I'm a young planner from a far east. I'm not born in London. I'm not born in the UK. I'm born in Hong Kong. I started my planning career when I was doing some volunteering work during my Master of Planning in the University of Hong Kong. I did with the youth ambassador and also in the Hong Kong City Gallery, which is the only one planning exhibition center in Hong Kong to introduce planning system and the planning history of Hong Kong. I also being nominated as one of the youth ambassador to go to Macau, which is our neighboring city, to host their first public planning forum to help their residents to formulate their planning strategy, which I find is quite interesting to have some different planning skills and knowledge from a different place. My first job after my graduation of my planning degree was in the graduate planner in the planning department of the Hong Kong government. One of the very exciting things I work for is the former CIHT Airport redevelopment project. It was one of the largest redevelopment project in the urban area after the handover, because the former airport has to be reused for a new development. A lot of very controversial things, a legal challenge on this side, but I'll be happy to get involved in the one of the process of this application or into development as well. In 2016, I moved to one of my biggest challenges in my life. I moved to the UK to start my career in planning in the UK. One of my job I got is the planning officer in Surrey County Council. You'll be obviously know County Council is working for mineral waste planning, so a lot of very controversial, challenging cases what I have. And also Surrey is most of the Surrey site is in greenbelt, so it's a lot of greenbelt challenges as well. I learned how to really work with in the high pressure, work with political members and also a lot of residents in the county as well. I'm a planning officer in West Berkshire Council. It's another challenge as well because it's got AOMB there, and it's quite a great mixture of rural and urban settings there as well. So a lot of challenges when you really determine the application as well. And it's quite unique in West Berkshire. They got a Christian industry, so it's a bit something like different from other places. What I've learned to work on how to that planning can support the industry in the county. After I got my award in 2018, I was being nominated again in 2020 as a National Young Planner of the Year as a finalist. My commitment is to really go ahead, work in the public sector, but also being developed in planning. So in 2019, I joined RTPI and launched a Chief Plan of Tomorrow initiative program. So it's asking the young planner to follow a head of planning for one day to learn what's going on. It was very interesting, and I think I learned quite a lot of things in quite high level things. For example, how the head of planning really chaired the meeting, how they really formulate the day. I would strongly recommend a young planner to be join the initiative if it's be there next year. Another commitment would be I joined the regional as well to be more commitment to help represent the planner from the public sector, as well as to help the region to get more activities for the planner on the members as well. So in 2019, I joined the regional activity committee of the RTPI South East, and this year I joined the regional management board as a treasurer as well in the Southeast region. Furthermore, I mean, apart from working for the volunteering in the institute, I also working for volunteer work outside the institute as well to help my colleagues and also the planners to get more activities outside the planning. So I'm also the member of the BOBMK steering group as well to do some design event representing West Berkshire to give some advice on the events in the future. As my very dynamic and very unique international background, so I keep moving myself to be more international planners. So I mean, after got the award, I joined. I attended the ECTP Young Planner Workshop in Paris in 2019 to Plymouth to help. Doing presentations there, and I also met a lot of new friends there, especially the planners from the European countries. I also got a chance to learn the different planning system in different country in Europe as well. This year, I'm one of the founder members of helping to set up the RTPI London and RTPI South East Joint International Group. And I also now currently is the international committee of the RTPI as well to help formulating the international of the institute. Last but not least, with some word to be sharing, currently is a pandemic, is not an easy time to really work on, especially for young people to really join the industry in the first time. So some of my advice and tips would be, I would say the first one would be work smart, not work hard. Most of the companies now are allowing employees to work flexibly and work remotely. So it's good to really work smart rather than to just keep all the time you keep working, but get more time to really, for example, attending some webinar. We our RTPI do quite a lot of good webinars there. Just 1 hour, you can get a fresh break and you can learn new planning skills and knowledge there. So rather than just focusing on what you're working. The second one I think is a bit tricky is I will go beyond the planning system. So what's my planning background is I learned actually 2 planning systems, in Hong Kong and a UK one. I found that there's a pros and cons on different planning systems. So sometimes it's good to think about, think out the boxes, and it's good to really go beyond the system. And you can see the planning system in a different view. And of course, the RTPI do quite a lot of great support, webinar resources, and also a lot of programs being initiated. For example, the mentorship program, the program I just introduced is the Chief Plan of Tomorrow. So if you really need help, do get support from the institute as well. And then last but not least, the pandemic, restrict our social distancing, but I think it's also help connect the world. So as a planner, I think we have to think locally. So not just locally, but also globally. So, apart from having your very professional planning skills and knowledge, you also have to really think how you really connect to the world, or maybe in the future you start your career in another place. I hope that you enjoy my presentation. I think that's all for that today, but I will hand it back to Sue. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much, Jeffrey. That was great, and really like the sort of, your reference and comparison with Hong Kong planning, and obviously now here in the UK and in England. So thank you so much. Yeah. We do have a chance to ask a couple of questions to both Jeffrey and Laura. Again, if anyone would like to ask anything, please just raise your hand and get in there.
Shall I kick off again?
Please.
And before I do ask the question, I just want to say, wow, it's such enthusiasm and such talent and such passion and such commitment. The future of planning is really in safe hands. So thank you both so much for that. And just thinking on what Laura talked about, a couple of things I wanted just to pick up. I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe as an inspiration for career a sewage treatment works. That is going to stay with me. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And I also totally agree with you with regard to young people. And you mentioned brownies. I'm a Scout leader, and I never cease to be amazed when I'm out with Scouts how they actually talk about the environment, how they actually get it. And the number of my Scouts who've become planners is a bit embarrassing, because it's actually
that's great news.
Very dominating. Totally agree. And I thought one of the questions I would have asked is what's in it for me? But actually, Laura, you covered everything in what's in it for me. So really well. And just in terms of Jeffrey, I went out to Hong Kong a couple of years ago, my first trip there, and I was absolutely amazed at sort of what I saw with regard to community engagement out there. There seemed to be a real passion from the people that I bumped into, and the signs I saw out there, and just what I read about people actually wanting to be part of that conversation. And I took a lot from that. And there's one building that particularly sort of struck me where they'd actually designed into the building. You probably know the one I'm referring to. I can't remember the name of the place now, but it's on the far side of Hong Kong Island, where there's actually a route for the dragon to come down from the mountain to the coast, because that was raised through community engagement as being an important route that brought good luck. I don't know if that was
okay. I know what.
It's absolutely incredible. I just thought that I've used the slide of that since, because this is the power of community engagement. So I also loved your phrase globally. I thought that was absolutely right. So my question, because I'll be shot in a minute if I don't get round to it, my question, what you've set out why you became planners and what you do and what motivates you, but what would be the one thing that you feel the RTPI can do as at a national level that would actually help change that image of planning and encourage a diversity of young people to get into planning and take it up as a career? Because I know that when you talk to them, people get really enthusiastic, everybody, about when you tell them. But what do you think we could do? And the one thing we could actually get out there and sort of push for?
Do you want me to go? I think one thing that worked really well, which we could probably build on, is, you know, the like Jeffrey mentioned, the chief plans of tomorrow, and that was obviously something we talked about at the chairs meeting. So that was really good, and that was a great initiative. And I think to build on that, that probably could be at an earlier stage in career, maybe like with students, obviously doing them, you know, weeks or days with the chief planner, or as we're hopefully going to develop with different sides, so like planning consultants take on, you know, just to have that different. I think that'd be really good to have that early on as well.
Brilliant. I'm scribbling notes. I hope you notice.
Right. Thank you, Sue, for the question. I think planning is a very tricky subject. I think I would say Michael and Dave will be agree what I'm saying, because as a planner, you have to be very professional to say what the planning jargon. But when you talking to the members public, you have to be using very simple wording. Especially you are working for the local plan, you definitely know the tricky point is one. So I mean, that's, I think, is also can the institute can help the young planner to, I mean, formulate some kinds of that piece of program to really help them to not just thinking professionally, but also how to really transfer or transform all the planning terms back to the members public. Because I think planner is just like bridge between the community and also our professionals. So it's unlikely other professionals, for example, engineer, architect, they can just focusing on very professional jargons. But as a planner, we just like a project manager. Sometimes we have to work on the things and how to explain to the members of the public. As also in the private sector, you have to work for the client as well. So it's very good to inspire the young planners, I mean, or the people who have interest to join the planning industry to have this kind of skills that I think is quite unique in this industry, to be honest.
Two brilliant answers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just a follow-up from me, really, to both of you again. It's what sort of advice are you going to give, or would you give, to students and people who are literally about to start their first job in planning? Given your vast experience already, even though you're still at the start of your career, but what would you say to, you know, someone just stepping into their first job as a planner? What advice would you give them? So, Laura, what would you say?
I think for me, well, right now, I think every opportunity, you know, must take every opportunity that you're given, especially now. I think obviously there's a lot of great career development webinars out there as well at the minute to utilise, which are all free. I think for me personally, any advice I could probably give is separate the two worlds, so like university and your work world, because obviously especially I learned this when I came out of university, and then you're asked to, you know, pick out the key points from a document, like within you know, a really big document within a small amount of time, and you get really used to the way you write differently, the way you read things differently, and you get better at picking out points. So I would definitely separate the different worlds, and I'd probably just add to probably just get used to going on to different councils' websites. Obviously, everywhere is set up differently, and that's something that you're always asked to do. I think when you're first starting, I was asked to do that a lot. You know, find this off this council, and they're all set up differently. And yeah, just to understand the process and where everything is stored.
Okay. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Sue. I think 3 points. The first point for the people who first join their career, don't be shy. Just like myself, I know nothing about planning system in the UK before I moved in. So what I'm saying is I just keep asking my colleagues, keep learning myself how to really from zero to now what I'm still learning, to be honest. I'm not really a professional at all because I'm still very young to this planning system. But I mean, I think that's all. Don't be shy, keep asking the things. If you don't know it, don't hesitate to ask your senior colleagues, your team leader, or whatever reasons there. I think the pandemic is a good thing for the young planners right now, because there, what I've said in the presentation, there's a lot of free webinars on the website, not just the RTPI, but also from the chambers, from other institutes which relate to planning. So feel free to join this free webinar. You can just get a coffee and work with that. I mean, you can just learn for a few things, but at least you can really gain what you have as a CPD as well, and part of your, is your development. The second point, I think, would be for the young planners who join, the tips is to try to really do more beyond what just you learn on your work itself. Sometimes the people, quite struggling. They just want to learn what they have done in the office. But some now, because of the pandemic, you have to work from home, work remotely. Sometimes you have to really not just stick to what you have learned, but you also need to try the new things as well. So that's why I'm saying the webinar is another resource to do. And the last but not least is give and take. So try, as a young planner, you try to really absorb things just like a spongy, but it's also good to really sharing to someone as well. So my experience would be before the pandemic, when I was back to Hong Kong, I usually went to my alma mater, my old institute, to sharing to my past student as well. So it's good to really sharing what my experience is. I'm not saying that to teaching them my route, what I'm going to be, but it's good to have a good sharing, just like a good example for them to really say, well, that will be one of the routes they can go for their career or in the development in the future. And I think that's also good to help you to train the presentation skill as well, because you have to really sharing your things in. So it's very important for you to have a good presenter. And I think this is also one of the very important skills for a planner as well.
Thank you both so much. That's brilliant. And unfortunately, that does draw our interviews with our award winners to a close. And once again, many thanks to Michael and David and Laura and Jeffrey for your presentations. That's really been so fascinating. Thank you. And we've heard about excellent practice between the private and the public planners working together collaboratively to deliver Plan MK, and also from two hugely inspiring, impressive and passionate young planning role models in Laura and Jeffrey. And it's just been a delight to hear what you've been doing from all of you. But also to thank Sue Mans for being with us and for your leadership, Sue, and for all the things that you do for planning and planners as the president of the RTPI. We really appreciate all that you do. And I hope everyone has enjoyed this session. And I also hope that you will join us on Monday, the 16th of November at 4 o'clock for the 2020 South East Awards ceremony. And that's not to be missed. So thank you all once again, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.